Hey, welcome back to the bench. Good to see you again. Hope you're all well. Thanks for joining the channel. And today on the bench I have a Hafler. How do you pronounce that? Hafler? I guess that's what it's pronounced. It's a Hafler model 110 preamplifier. Now this belongs to a friend of mine. He called me up. He says, yeah, I'm having troubles with it. Problem he describes is one channel is low. The right channel is low, he says, and he described it as you need to put the balance control right around 1 o'clock or 1:30 before it balances out, which is not correct. So it's an interesting little unit. Now he told me that he built this from a kit, and he is also the owner, or was the owner, of the Hafler power amplifier, the MOSFET power amplifier that I had. I can't remember what episode it was, but there was a 220, I think it was called, and I did work on that one for him. And he purchased that kit as well, the power amplifier one and this one. So he had both of these as kits, and he assembled them when he was younger. I don't know how old this is. I'm guessing 30 years plus, because I don't think there's anything that resembles date codes on the back of these things. I don't think so. There's no date on the back. Anyway, so he's complaining about one channel low. So let's have a look at the schematic, and we'll see if we can figure out why one channel would go low on this thing. I think you'll find it's pretty basic inside, pretty simple design, so it shouldn't be too hard to fix. So let's have a look. Okay, let's have a look at this preamplifier here. Schematic diagram is pretty basic. The input power comes in through a switch, one unswitched outlet, 3 switched, fuse, and then it goes into a multi-tap transformer where you can set the mains voltage up. Looks like there's different combinations for different power. Yeah, right here. And secondary side is pretty basic. It has a split power supply, positive, negative. Goes through 2 3-tab regulators to get 23.2 volts, positive and negative, and that's our main voltages for all the amplifier circuits. So what we're dealing with is a loss of a signal somewhere along this thing. So we have all our inputs on this side, auxiliary, tuner, tape. We have 2 phono inputs down here, which are selected by this switch, S1, and this goes into the phono amplifier stage. They only show the one for the, I think it's the left channel showing, but it's right channel will be identical. So we have our input through a switch, coupling capacitors or DC blocking right here, and then it goes into the amplifier, and we have our RIAA equalization here right in the feedback circuit of this amplifier. We have an output here on, where is it? This line here is our output. No, correction. This line here with R20, that is our output, and it goes up to the input switching. So we have all our input switching here. Input selector, our tape monitors, our EPL. What's EPL? I can't remember. Don't know. But anyways, it all gets distilled down into this one single line, or is our signal that goes into the amplifier. And then we have our mono stereo switch. We have a filter that is switchable, and then we go into our balance pot and volume pot, and then we have C19 here, which is a signal passing through this, goes into our long tail pair and goes into this amplifier. And on the output of this amplifier, it is right here
at this point between the junction of Q13 and Q14. And the signal's taken off here and goes through two capacitors, C21, C22, through a resistor. And then it meets up with this FET transistor. Now this FET is for muting purposes. It comes from the muting circuit, and the signal to mute that comes from this line. And when mute is active, this FET is shorting out this to ground. L is our signal ground for left. So when muting's active, this FET shunts the signal to ground and causes the signal to disappear off this line. This line here that goes out this way is the line that goes out the back to the direct output. So we're experiencing a drop in one channel. So what it could be a funky input connector. We didn't test all the inputs yet. Could be this connector between the backboard and the main board. Could be any one of these switches that has a weak or poor connection. The signal might be getting through. This balance pot might be damaged or defective. Volume pot might be damaged or defective. Might have a weak capacitor C19. We could have a weak capacitor C21 or C22. Although they have two capacitors here. I don't know what their values are, but why they're doubling up, I don't know. And we might have a muting circuit that's partially coming on. So those could all be causes for having a weak channel. Now, we don't know if we have a weak channel or if we have the other channel is just artificially being boosted. And that can happen too if you have one channel that has a broken feedback loop. For whatever reason, if the feedback loop isn't being completed, or if it's weak, your gain on this amplifier, the global gain on this amplifier will go up if you remove the negative feedback. The more negative feedback you add, the less gain you'll have in this amplifier. So that could be another cause too. Usually they put the tone circuits in the negative feedback loop, and there's some switches and potentiometers in there as well. You would think they would present themselves as either like the treble control doesn't work, or the bass control doesn't work, or not, it doesn't work the way it's expected. That would be a problem in there. But to have gain going up in an amplifier is kind of unusual, but it does happen, so that's what you got to keep an eye out for. But for right now, we're going to assume that we're lost gain in one of these amplifiers, or we lost gain in one of the channels, and we have to figure out the cause. So let's start troubleshooting.
Alright, let's remove the cover and have a look inside. I think we have to remove 4 screws from the bottom. And these are flathead screws. Not flathead screws, but the blade. Yeah, so have a look at this. So we had a look at the schematic, and there's really not that much that can go wrong with it. But I have a good feeling we can figure it out if we just check a few components here. There we go. Yeah, we have our power transformer mounted in the back here. And it looks like we have a bipolar supply. They're using 2 voltage regulators, series pass, to provide plus minus 24 volts. The caps, they look like Illinois capacitor. You can see that one. Rubicons, Illinois capacitor. So it looks pretty good. The board is marked here, so you got left line amplifier in this area, right amplifier, line amplifier in this area. Down here, get this out of the way, we have right phono, left phono, and that's pretty much all the electronics in here is just the 2 phono amplifiers and the 2 line amplifiers. And then there's a look at the switching and the tone controls and the volume attenuator. Power switch. So nice design. It's very well built. I'm going to pull the bottom off because it does have removable bottom, and that'll allow us to inspect the bottom of the board. And then we'll see what we can do for testing where this. Okay, so here's a look at the bottom of the board. Everything looks factory soldered and it's all clean with the exception of one transistor that looks like it might have been changed. Maybe as they tested, who knows. But other than that, I can't see anything that looks out of the ordinary. Anything has been changed. All the capacitors are original. So this is good. But we still need to figure out why we have a low channel. Okay, to test this, what I'm doing is I'm feeding in the back here in the auxiliary 1000 hertz tone, and it's going to both channels. This is equal signal to both channels. It's just a Y splitter off my signal generator, and it's fed into both channels. And I guess I need to plug these back in because that's kind of important. Okay, I'm also picking off the output signal from these 2 jacks. Is connected by these green wires, and those green wires feed their way under to the headphone jack, and that's where I'm picking them off for my voltmeter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the output of both channels. I got positive connected to one channel, negative connected to the other channel, and if both signals are the same amplitude coming out of this preamplifier, this meter should read 0. But we're got it set up to read 10 volts right now. And let's turn on my signal and let's plug this in. And let's see just how bad the imbalance is right now. I have everything set to normal, and tone controls are centered, volume controls down. Let's plug it in and turn it on. About 5-6 watts. 7 watts climbing. Okay, 7.5 watts, no problem. Let's turn this up and watch this meter. I'm getting 0 out of that. So let's put it on the lower range. Try it again. Getting anything out of this thing. Let's just check and see if we have our positive, negative rails. Can you see that? No, you can't. So, negative. Let's see here. 21.8. 34 volts input. 23 output. $35 input, 23.5 output. Okay. So I figured out my analog meter wasn't up for the task, so I switched it out for a digital. And we're going to try this again. We're going to plug it in, turn it on, and I have an AC signal going through right now. And if I swing the balance all the way to the left and crank up the volume, you can see the voltage coming out of the preamplifier. So I get 3.5 volts RMS. That's a good value. Now that's, remember I have my positive connected to the output of the left channel, negative connected to the output of the right channel. So we're measuring the difference between the two channels, not the total amplitude. We're just measuring the difference. So if I turn this up, let's say half volume, and I zero the balance pot, we should get a null on here where it says, at one point where it says 0. And we're actually, that's as low as I can get it, and that's right in the 12 o'clock position. So let's give it some more beans here. Let's turn up the volume a little bit and get it more accurate. Okay, if I go off balance, then one channel goes. My null point is right in the center, so this amplifier is doing what it should be doing, is it's balanced. If you can see that, but we're at 12 o'clock right now, and that's as low as I can get that. If I turn it down to the left, our signal difference between the two signals increases. If I zero it here, it's as low as it goes. If I turn it to the right, it climbs up again. So as far as everything's going here, everything looks good, unless we have a dodgy switch. Playing with this switch here, and I think now he never specified which input it's doing this on. Play with this switch. Seems to be working. Mono switch. EPL, what is EPL? Tone control. Yeah, everything seems good. There is a little bit of difference here that I can't null out. That's 17 millivolts. I wonder if that's a distortion maybe in one channel that I'm picking up. I'm trying to null it out here, but it's not going that low. When I turn it full volume, it disappears. So that little bit of difference there is probably within the potentiometer here for the volume control, because as I go up and down the scale here, it changes. So it might not, these two channels might not be tracking exactly the same, especially at the high end here, where it's, when I go maximum, they equalize and they stay. But when I come down a little bit, one is just a slightly less than the other, or slightly more than the other. Go down to 0, it's good. If I start coming up, right around the 10 o'clock position, they start to track differently. So I have a feeling this preamplifier is working good, unless there is a problem with a switch or the muting circuit itself. There's phono. And I am just measuring the noise from the phono amplifier, that's all I'm measuring. If I mono this out, it goes to 0. So we're getting some kind of stereo noise on the phono channel. Auxiliary should be silent. Tuner, tape 1, tape 2. Okay, let me try the other inputs. Okay, here's a look at a signal that's going through the phono stage. and if I go up and down, there's two signals. Now let's see what you're doing here. If I adjust one, you can see it's right on top of the other one. So this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at both signals at once, and they both track perfectly together. And I don't see any discrepancies between left and right. If I go on the balance control, you can see one or the other. So it's perfectly balanced on this on the phono. Let me try again on the auxiliary. Okay, here's the same thing on the auxiliary. If I go up in the volume control, you see they both track perfectly. Let me turn this down a bit. He said it was a noticeable difference on the balance pot. You had to turn the balance pot to almost 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock before the two would balance. But I'm not seeing that here. If I go left, center, right, you can see the difference between the two. If I go to about the 1 o'clock position, you can see the difference between the two channels. And that's 0 or 12 o'clock. So it's working good. I don't see any issue with the channel balance between the two. Now, I was playing with these switches, and they seem stable. That's phono picking up hum. Yeah, everything seems good with the switches. And the pots are clean. I don't see any issues here. So I guess there's no fault. So at this point I really can't do anything. What I can do is I can check for any faulty capacitors and anything like that. I don't think I'll find any here. They all look pretty good. But at this point I really can't do anything for him other than return it to him and get him to check his cables, get him to check his source, get him to check his power amplifier, because there's something else in the chain of the system here that's causing one channel to drop out, and it's not the preamp. So no fix here. It's the result I'd like to see, and there's no faults. Well, there you have it. There was no repair this week, but we had to give it a test anyways, and we got to have a look under the hood and see what it was, how it was built. It's a nice little unit. I like this little preamplifier. It's a nice design. It's got a good circuit behind it. It's got it's a basic simple circuit. It's not overly complicated. So in my opinion, simpler is better because you have less how do you put it? Less manipulation on the signal, let's say. And the less manipulation on the signal on its way through an amplifier, the cleaner it sounds, and the more pure is the audio reproduction. But yeah, that's a nice little unit. I gave Marcel a call. He's going to come pick it up in about an hour, and I'm sure he'll be happy to get this back. Yeah, it's a nice little unit. I like this. It's constructed well. I do like the printed circuit board in this thing. It is a double-sided fiberglass board, not like the Japanese equipment where you get the phenolic and it breaks. But this is a nice little unit. So I'm going to let this go here. Thanks for watching, and take care, and we'll see you on the next one.